Hello, I'm Rainey. Welcome to my channel. For today's video, I have been asked to make a banoffee cheesecake for a friend's birthday. It's a new recipe that I've not tried before, but I'm going to give it a go, and as always, I'm even going to make it my own. All that and more coming up. So for this recipe, I'm going to be starting with a classic cheesecake recipe, which I will throw in some bananas and some caramel into that to obviously get you a banoffee taste. And then I also want to try my hand at making some caramelized bananas because I think that will just look really pretty. And the other thing I want to do is to top it off with some caramel ganache. And that's a new one for me too. So there's quite a lot of new things to try out in this recipe. If you're new to my channel, then welcome. It's really great to have you here today, and I hope that you'll consider subscribing. And if you're already a subscriber, then don't forget to hit that little bell button and you'll get notified every time I post a new video. Now, my posting schedule has changed. I now post on a Thursday evening every 2 weeks. But without further ado, let's start this video. For the caramel, I started with half a cup of caster sugar with 3 tablespoons of water, and I heated that over a medium heat until it started to bubble away. And when it started to turn a rich amber colour, I then stirred in half a cup of double cream, which had a dash of vanilla in it. Once the sauce was nice and smooth, I put a little bit of sea salt into it and stirred that through to give a nice salted caramel. For the biscuit base, I melted 75 grams of unsalted butter in a saucepan, and then I blitzed up 200 grams of digestive biscuits and mixed those 3 together. So I greased my tin with the 1 cal Fry Light spray, and then I lined my tin pretty similar to the way that I showed in my decadent chocolate fudge cake recipe, and I think you'll see there's a link just above there to that if you want to see in detail how I did that. The only difference here is instead of cutting along the crease, you cut above the crease, probably by about 1 centimetre, and then you're going to create a little bit of a fringe. And that fringe is just going to help so that the base of the liner will go up the sides of the tin a little bit, as you can see. You're then going to take a strip of parchment paper and line the sides of the tin, thus creating like a full seal inside your tin. You're then going to take your biscuit mixture and pour it into your tin, and then you want to compact it down, and I do this with the back of my knuckles, and then once I'm happy that I've got it fairly smooth, I will use a spoon to smooth it out even more. And then you want to pop it in the fridge for probably about half an hour. So for the first way, I melted 50 grams of unsalted butter with 2 to 3 tablespoons of dark brown sugar in a large frying pan, and whilst those were heating together, I prepared my banana. I cut my banana up into about 5mm slices, and then I added these to my caramel mixture, spreading them out so that they each had a good space in the frying pan. And then I made sure to turn them over regularly so that they were thoroughly coated in the sauce. And then once they were a gorgeous amber colour, I then put them out onto a piece of parchment paper to cool down, and I used the rest of the sauce to coat the bottom of my cake tin with that biscuit base in it. Now for my second method, I cut my banana into much larger pieces, so probably about 1 centimetre in thickness, and then I melted a half a cup of caster sugar in my frying pan, so nothing else, just caster sugar. Once it had turned a nice amber colour, I added in my banana and made sure they were thoroughly coated in the caramel, and then decanted them straight away onto my parchment paper. The next step was to line my cake tin with the caramelised banana, so the one that I'd done first of all, the 5mm thickness pieces, and I did that all the way around the tin in 2 layers so that the banana came most of the way up the tin. And the aim of this was just so that it would look really pretty, hopefully once we took the parchment paper off at the end. Now for the filling, I started by mashing together 2 ripe bananas until they formed kind of like a banana paste. Then in my mixing bowl, I measured out 500 grams of cream cheese with 75 grams of caster sugar, and then I added my banana mixture into this. I also added some of my caramel and a little bit of salted caramel flavoured essence. I then popped my bowl back on the stand mixer and let it mix on a sort of low to medium speed for maybe a couple of minutes until it was fairly well combined, and then making sure to scrape down the sides of my bowl to get any mixture that hadn't quite been incorporated. Whilst my filling was mixing away, I then whisked together 140 ml of double cream until it reached the stiff peak stage, at which point I then added it into my filling. I then mixed it back on the stand mixer on a low speed until it was just combined. I then added my gelatin, and this was just a 12-gram sachet dissolved in about 8 tablespoons of hot water. Now I know not everyone likes to use gelatin, or you might want to use a plant-based alternative, and if you didn't want to use the gelatin, you might just need to play around with the quantities in this filling to get a slightly firmer cheesecake at the end of it. So then I poured my mixture into my prepared tin and popped it in the fridge for about 12 hours. So for my first filling, I reserved about 1/2 cup of my cheesecake filling mixture and mixed it with about 1 cup of icing sugar until it had reached kind of like a thick paste consistency. I then popped that in a container and set it aside. Now to make my caramel ganache, all I did was to melt together 50 grams of dark chocolate, 100 grams of white chocolate and 50 ml of double cream in a microwave for 30-second bursts until the chocolate pieces were almost completely melted, but there were still a few lumps in it. I then gave it a really good mix to finish melting the chocolate. Once I'd done that, I added a little bit of my caramel mixture to it, and I added some salted caramel flavouring to it too, and it came out this lovely rich golden colour and it tasted amazing. Once my cheesecake had fully set, I then poured on that gorgeous caramel ganache and spread it out nice and evenly all over the top, and then I popped it back in the freezer for about half an hour. I then took a little bit of the ganache and spread it onto the cake board so that my cheesecake would have something to stick to. And then using a palette knife, I ran it around in between the parchment paper and the tin just to loosen it off from the cake tin. And then taking a tin can, I put the base of the cheesecake on that and slid the sides down. I then used the palette knife to remove the base of the cheesecake to put it onto the cake board. And I took the sides off, smoothed the caramel ganache out, and then lifting the cake with the palette knife again, I took out the last piece of parchment paper. I then returned it to the fridge for a further 10 minutes whilst I got on with the final topping. So I took about 100 ml of double cream and started to whisk that together until it reached the soft peak stage. I then added in a little bit of that reserved cheesecake filling, I think probably a couple of tablespoons, and continued to whisk until it reached the stiff peak stage. Once I was happy it hit the stiff peak stage, I then filled a piping bag with a star nozzle tip and used it to pipe on top of my cheesecake. And so you can do any design you like. I just piped some little rosettes, and then in between the rosettes I did some little stars just to fill in the gaps. And then to complete the decoration, I cut the banana pieces that I'd reserved. That was the second caramelised banana method that we did. And I put the halves onto each large rosette to make it look pretty. And then finished it off with some chocolate sprinkles all over the top of the cheesecake, and then a good drizzle of the rest of that caramel sauce that we made at the beginning. So this was the finished cheesecake, and as I'm sure you'll agree, it looks absolutely divine. You've got those gorgeous caramelized banana pieces sitting on top of banoffee flavored whipped cream pillows, which is sitting on top of that gorgeous caramel ganache that we made. And then around the sides of the cake, you can see those beautiful caramelized bananas that we made at the very beginning, the first method of caramelized bananas, and it just looks utterly stunning. And I have it on good authority from the birthday girl herself that it went down a storm, so I'm so pleased with that. So that's it, guys, that's it for this cake tutorial. I really hope that you enjoyed it and that you have a go at making this awesome cheesecake. And of course, if you do, I would love to hear how it went. So let me know what you thought in the comments below. I so love hearing from you guys. So keep me posted on your makes and your bakes. And of course, if you're on Instagram, then you can share photos of your cakes with me. I am Rainey S. Johnson on there. So you just follow me and tag me in your pictures and I'll be able to see all of your wonderful creations. So thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video, and don't forget, if you enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!